Ethan had only lived in the apartment for 11 days when he realized something wasn't right. It wasn't anything obvious at first. The place was small, a one-bedroom unit on the third floor of an older building just outside the city. The rent was cheap, which was the main reason he took it. The landlord barely asked questions, handed him the keys the same day, and told him the previous tenant had left in a hurry. At the time, that didn't bother him. By the second night, he noticed the layout felt off. Not wrong, exactly, just inconsistent. The front door opened into a narrow hallway that led to the living room. On the right was the bathroom. On the left, the bedroom. Straight ahead, the kitchen. Simple. Except sometimes, when he walked from the bedroom to the kitchen, the hallway felt longer than it should have been. Not by much, just enough that he'd slow down and notice it. He told himself it was just the unfamiliar space. By day 5, the sounds started, soft ones at first. Movement in the walls, a faint creaking like someone shifting their weight just out of sight. He checked with the neighbors once, casually asking if the walls were thin. They told him the unit next to his had been empty for months. That was the first time he felt uneasy. Still, he stayed. On the 11th night, everything changed. It was around 9:30 p.m. Ethan had been working late on his laptop in the living room when the power flickered once. Then again. Not enough to shut anything off, just enough to make him look up. The apartment fell completely silent. No hum from the fridge, no distant traffic. Even the usual creaks in the building seemed to stop all at once. Then came the knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps, not on the front door. From somewhere deeper inside the apartment, Ethan froze. He listened carefully, trying to figure out where it came from. The bedroom. Another 3 knocks followed, louder this time. He stood up slowly and walked down the hallway, his footsteps sounding strangely muted, like the space around him was swallowing the noise. The bedroom door was already slightly open. He was sure he had closed it earlier. "Hello?" he called out, his voice quieter than he intended. No answer. He pushed the door open the rest of the way. The room was empty, nothing out of place. The window was shut. The closet door was closed. He stepped inside, scanning the corners. Then he heard it again. 3 knocks, this time right behind him. He turned sharply toward the hallway. The apartment looked different. Not dramatically, but enough. The hallway seemed narrower, the walls slightly closer together than before. Ethan stepped back into it, his heart starting to pound. Something felt wrong, deeply wrong. He moved quickly toward the front door. He didn't hesitate, he just wanted out. He grabbed the handle, unlocked it, and pulled it open. Behind it was not the hallway outside. It was his kitchen. He froze, staring. The same kitchen he had just walked past minutes ago. Same dim overhead light. Same dishes in the sink. Same chair slightly pulled out from the table. He slowly closed the door, took a breath, then opened it again. Still the kitchen. He let go of the handle. For a few seconds, he just stood there, trying to process what he was seeing. Then he laughed under his breath. "Okay, not funny," he muttered, even though no one else was there. He walked to the kitchen directly this time, just to confirm. It was real, solid, normal. He turned around and went back to the front door, opened it again. Kitchen. That's when the panic started to set in. He moved faster now, going to the bedroom. He opened that door. The bathroom. He blinked, closed it, opened it again. Still the bathroom. The layout was breaking, changing. Or maybe it always had been. Ethan backed away slowly, his breathing becoming uneven. "This doesn't make sense," he whispered. He pulled out his phone. No signal. Wi-Fi was gone too. Of course it was. He tried calling anyway. Nothing. Then, from somewhere behind the walls, 3 knocks, closer this time. He turned his head slowly toward the sound. It came from the living room wall, the same wall that separated his unit from the empty apartment next door. Except now, it didn't sound like it was coming from the other side. It sounded like it was inside the wall. Something knocked again, 3 times, then a pause, then 3 more, like it was waiting for a response. Ethan shook his head, backing away. "No," he said out loud, more firmly this time. "No, I'm not doing this." He grabbed his keys and ran to the front door again. Kitchen. He slammed it shut, ran to the bedroom, bathroom. Every door was wrong. Every path led somewhere inside. He tried the windows next, locked. He unlocked one and pushed. It didn't budge. He pushed harder. Nothing. It felt like it wasn't even a real window anymore, like it was just part of the wall. The knocking started again. Louder now, not just from one place, from multiple points around him, behind the walls, above him, below, all in the same slow rhythm. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks. Ethan pressed his hands over his ears, pacing in the center of the apartment. "This isn't real," he kept repeating. "This isn't real." Then he noticed something that made his stomach drop. The hallway. It was longer now. Much longer. The bedroom door at the end looked farther away than it should have been. The light above flickered faintly, stretching the shadows along the walls. And at the very end of that hallway, there was another door. A door he had never seen before. It wasn't there before. It couldn't have been. Ethan stood frozen for a few seconds, staring at it. The knocking stopped. Complete silence filled the apartment again, like whatever was making the sound was waiting, watching. He took a slow step forward, then another. The hallway seemed to stretch with him, each step taking longer than it should have. But the door stayed there, waiting. When he finally reached it, his hand hovered over the handle. It was cold, colder than anything else in the apartment. He hesitated, then slowly, he opened it. Inside was darkness, not just a dark room, total absence of light, like the space beyond the doorway didn't exist. He leaned forward slightly, trying to see anything. And then, 3 knocks, right behind him. He spun around. The hallway was gone. There was no apartment, no walls, no doors, just darkness stretching in every direction, except for one thing. A faint outline of a room behind him. His apartment. Small, distant, like it was far away now. He stepped back toward it instinctively. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, everything snapped back. He was standing in his living room again, exactly as it had been before. The lights were steady. The fridge hummed softly. The hallway was normal, every door where it should be. Ethan stood there, breathing hard, trying to understand what had just happened. Slowly, cautiously, he walked to the front door. He opened it. The real hallway outside, unchanged. He didn't waste a second. He grabbed his keys and left. He didn't pack anything, didn't turn anything off. He just left. The next morning, he called the landlord and said he was done. He didn't explain. He just said he wouldn't be coming back. A week later, someone new moved into the unit. According to a neighbor who lived across the hall, the new tenant lasted 3 nights. On the 4th night, around 9:30 p.m., someone heard loud footsteps pacing inside the apartment. Then, knocking. 3 slow, deliberate taps, over and over again. The neighbor said it went on for nearly 10 minutes before suddenly stopping. The next morning, the door to the apartment was found wide open. The lights were on. The place looked untouched. No signs of forced entry, no sign of the tenant. They were never seen again. The landlord told anyone who asked that the tenant had left unexpectedly, just like the one before. And if someone stands in the hallway outside that apartment late enough at night, they might hear it, faint, muffled, coming from somewhere deep inside. 3 knocks. Pause. 3 knocks, like something is still inside, trying to find the right door out.
It was supposed to be a simple weekend sleepover. 4 friends from high school had planned it for weeks. Just a night away from parents, video games, movies, and late-night snacks. Emily's house was on the outskirts of town, in a quiet neighborhood where the streetlights flickered just enough to make shadows stretch long across the pavement. The first thing her friends noticed, though, was how still the street was. No cars, no neighbors walking dogs, just the sound of leaves skittering in the wind. When they arrived, Emily greeted them at the door with her usual easy smile, but something about her eyes seemed distant, almost cautious. She ushered them inside quickly, apologizing for her parents' absence. "They're, busy tonight," she said, avoiding eye contact. Her voice was normal, but the way she glanced over her shoulder made the living room feel colder than it should have been. The house was neat, almost unnervingly so. Every picture frame on the wall was perfectly aligned. Every chair tucked in under the table. It smelled faintly of disinfectant, sharp enough to make their noses sting. Emily's friends shrugged it off at first. Maybe her parents were just meticulous. They settled into the living room with snacks, laughing over old jokes and sharing stories from school. But as the night went on, subtle things began to unsettle them. Doors creaked when no one was near them. Footsteps seemed to echo from the hallways, though there was no one there. One friend, Mia, swore she saw a shadow flick past the kitchen doorway, just out of the corner of her eye, but when she turned, no one was there. When it was time to set up the sleeping bags in Emily's room, she hesitated at the door. "You guys, my parents, just stay out here. I'll bring snacks later." There was an edge to her voice that didn't sit right, but the others didn't question it. They rolled out their sleeping bags in the living room, trying to laugh off the tension. Around midnight, they started hearing it. Quiet whispers. At first, it sounded like the wind, but it was too patterned, too deliberate. Then came the footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving across the upstairs hallway. Emily's friends froze. "It's probably just the floor settling," one whispered, but even they didn't believe it. A soft thump followed, like something heavy being dropped. Then another. The whispers grew louder, almost forming words, but the syllables were garbled, distant, and wrong. Mia peeked toward the staircase. "Emily, is someone up there?" she asked. There was no answer. Minutes passed. The house seemed to hold its breath. Then the front door slammed. All 4 friends jumped, their hearts hammering. No wind, no one at the door, only the faint sound of shuffling footsteps retreating upstairs. Finally, curiosity, or perhaps fear, got the better of one of them. Jake crept toward the hallway. The stairs were empty. The upstairs doors were all shut. But when he glanced into Emily's parents' bedroom, the light was on. A single lamp, low and warm, but no one was inside. The bed was made perfectly, sheets tucked tight. On the floor, there were small, dark smudges, like fingerprints, but smeared across the carpet as if someone had been dragged. Emily's phone buzzed, startling them all. She had a text from her mom. "Make sure the guests are comfortable. Don't wake anyone." She frowned. "That's weird. I haven't told my mom we had friends over tonight." That was when the whispers became voices, faint but distinct, coming from inside the walls. "Get out! Get out! Get out!" The sound seemed to crawl through the air, circling them, impossible to pinpoint. Panic set in. They grabbed each other's hands, trying to convince themselves it was a prank, some elaborate joke Emily had planned. But her face was pale, frozen, and her hands shook. She wasn't joking. Suddenly, the closet door in the living room creaked open. Not just a crack, fully open, slow and deliberate. Something inside shifted. Shadows pooled in the corner of the room. One of Emily's friends, Daniel, stepped back and almost tripped over the sleeping bag. "We should leave," he whispered, voice trembling. Before anyone could move, Emily's parents appeared at the top of the staircase. Or, they looked like her parents. Their faces were expressionless, unnaturally still, eyes too wide and blank. "It's time to sleep," her mother said, voice monotone. "You've overstayed your welcome." Emily screamed. Her friends froze. These weren't the people they had met when they first arrived. Something about their posture, their movements, the way their eyes didn't reflect the lamplight. It was wrong, deeply wrong. Mia ran for the front door. It wouldn't budge. Jake tried a window, locked tight. Every exit was sealed. The whispers grew into a chorus, 1,000 voices pressed together, chanting in a language none of them could understand. Echoing from behind the walls, from the ceiling, from everywhere at once. Emily grabbed Daniel's arm. "Follow me," she shouted. She led them through the hallway to a small door at the back of the house, one they hadn't noticed before. The handle was cold, metal biting into their palms, but it opened into a narrow crawl space. The darkness inside smelled of damp earth and something older, fouler. They crawled through, the voices fading just enough to make them think they had escaped. But as they emerged into the backyard, snow crunched under their feet. The street was empty, quiet again, and the house loomed behind them like it had never been alive. They didn't wait to see if anyone came after them. They ran until their lungs burned and their shoes were wet with slush. When the police arrived later, Emily's house was normal. No signs of intrusion, no marks on doors or windows, no hidden crawl space in the living room. Her parents insisted they hadn't gone upstairs at all that night. No one had been in the house but Emily and her friends. But the friends all remembered what they had seen, and none of them ever went near Emily's house again. Years later, Emily moved away. Her friends stayed in town, but every time someone mentioned her name, they all felt a chill. Something about that night lingered, a presence that never truly left. And every time they passed the empty house on the quiet street, they swore they saw shadows move behind the windows, even though the lights were always off. No one could explain it. No one ever came forward. And maybe that was the worst part. The knowledge that whatever had been in that house with them, it hadn't left when they ran.